Something big is brewing in Montreal as the offseason and more names are coming onto the market. Just as the Leafs get eliminated, the Panthers move on. There are a myriad of targets for the Montreal Canadiens. And here today, we're going to go through, I think we got 10, we got 12, we have 14 different names, a bunch of different names we're going into, and you will help decide who the true top Montreal Canadiens targets are for this offseason. We're going to be going round by round, head to head, show the stats. This is up to the fans to decide who the ultimate target is. This is a fun, different live stream today. Jesse and I could not be more excited. Cannot wait for the fans to come in here, give their thoughts. How you feeling on this Monday morning on the eve of a Leafs loss and running into the offseason full steam ahead?
I mean, this is great. The tables are turned here today. We're asking the fans because we just know how bright, intelligent, knowledgeable you guys are. So I hope you guys have really brought your thinking caps here today. We're going to have a couple for you, and definitely we're going to be looking to kind of come to this even in the future. Like, for example, like what's the thoughts of like Fowler playing a game next year with the Montreal Canadiens? We just love to get your thoughts, your opinions, on these different things, of course, so it's going to be really fun to break it all down here today.
Yeah, and hey, if this works out well, now this all predicates on you guys giving a lot of votes, giving a lot of input, but if this works out well, like you said, Jesse, we'd love to do more of this in the future, looking towards the Habs future, this past season, all kinds of different stuff, so lock in. We're ready to go. And I know there's draft stuff as well. We'll probably do something about that. I see people talking about it already. Wanted to shout out Joseph and Ethan in the chat, the two mods, Jason Patrick. So happy to be a part of live chat, normally working. Well, Jason, you picked a great day because it's going to be very interactive. Before we get into it, though, 110 people in here already. Let's get that like number up. You know how much we love that. You guys love hitting it when we remind you as well. So would love to see that. Jesse, look. Ultimately now, Montreal, we got a ton of decisions, right? And how many videos can we make about so many different targets? It's incredibly fun, and I love it. There's so many different names we throw out there. But when it comes down to the true Habs top targets, there's a lot of names, especially that keep circulating. And we got to figure out, with the fans' help, who really the top guy is. I mean, I think in my mind, it's a center, but, there's too many names, right? I mean, where do we even want to start here? I mean, name me one player, or even the chat can name one player. I'm already seeing Mitch Marner. What do you think about that? Do we start off with a bit of Mitch Marner stuff right now, right off the bat?
Just to say, if there's any Leafs fans here in the chat today, you are welcome at Habs Digest. We are not going to do you dirty like that. We know, wow, just obviously wasn't a, crazy game. Just kind of, once again, Josh, can we just give, the sponsorship for the Leafs, knowing the years of, playoff pressure that they've crumbled under, to have the Oreo and then the milk logos on them. For me, it says way too funny. They're looking soft like some Oreos and some milk here today. It's just, I don't know, that needs to go. The whole plan just needs to switch up a little bit. If you are looking for another team, we're going to do you right over here. Josh, Marner is definitely interesting there. But we got our different lists. We got our kind of our preferred guys for sure. And then there's kind of the guys that are more likely. Then there's the guys that aren't very likely at all, but that would be a great option. Like Duchesne, for example. Let's kind of get this stuff out of the way, sure. The guys that aren't likely there. Duchesne's a great player, but we know that kind of after his time in Ottawa, where maybe he just didn't have the best success, he doesn't want to come to Canada. For me, that's just kind of one player where even though he has those stats, for me, that's just one guy that we're not really going to. If we're talking about guys that, we prefer, Josh, let's start off this bang. Some of the guys that I'm looking for, right off the bat, ideal world, just kind of checking out what might be still probable, my preferred is probably a McTavish type of guy, just to kind of grow with the team. It's just, the Ducks and the teams like Sharks, they're not going to be wanting to trade with us too much. They're trying to build their own thing. So it's going to take a Kim's ransom. So it's even though that's kind of a preferred, I put McTavish still in that not as likely type of field there. Byfield, though, for example, that is somebody who I could get behind where it's still a young guy, but there's just so much flux with the management right there. There's a little bit of wiggle room where you get in there. You could almost view Bergevin, even though his position there is kind of in flux. If he's still there, you could almost view that as maybe a negative to making this deal happen. I don't know. People don't hold on to things for too long there. But I feel with given all the prospects, all the picks we have, there's something that we could do to kind of get Byfield here. There is a world, there is a way where that happens. Obviously, that's a little bit of a tougher one, but that's where you're starting with for Kent Hughes. You want to start off first with who can grow with this team, be part of it a long time. Byfield 2 years in a row, 20 goals scoring. Like, this guy's starting to be consistently a very good point producer while also getting that size that we're also looking for as well.
I mean, he's one of the guys that's right at the top of my list. And yeah, I don't even know who we're going to put him head to head against today, because I think he might just be the winner at the end of the day, Jesse. But I mean, look, I tend to agree. A guy like Duchesne, maybe less likely. McTavish, as an RFA, you never really know with the odds of offer sheets, but Anaheim might be prepared to offer anything. And also in LA, I know you mentioned Bergevin. He might be leaving for somewhere else, but they did just hire Ken Holland. And, he has a bit of a reputation of kind of going all in to win now. And if, he wants to win now and doesn't see Byfield as the future, hey, I think you're right. There could be something very, very interesting there. And we got a lot of people in chat already saying names like Brock Nelson. That's Barzell. Brock Nelson, Bo Horvat. These are even more names that we're talking about. But that's the beauty of this exercise today. We need to see who is the number one. And I agree, there's some guys that are unlikely. And you know what? Why don't we start with one of those guys who's unlikely and pair them with a guy that's maybe a little more likely? And this is just, why don't we go do 2 UFAs at this point? It's hard. We try to do young and old. At the end of the day, we're going to try and do our best here, but we got to get your fan interaction, Jesse. I'm thinking to start off, why don't we go with the guy you just mentioned, Matt Duchesne. He's a UFA, alongside Sam Bennett, who's also a UFA. They're both unrestricted free agents. It would take a lot to pry them away from their current teams. It'd take a lot to bring Duchesne to Canada. It'd take a lot to get Sam Bennett away from Florida. They're going to want to keep him around. Of course, a Selke finalist. This guy has been amazing. So when I go through these two guys, I mean, Duchesne's better on the faceoff dot, had more points. Sam Bennett's a lot better defensively and plays that playoff style, which basically just means injuring people. So ultimately, these are two very interesting guys. Now, I'm going to start the poll. This is poll 1 of the day. There's going to be a lot of these, so be ready. And what I want you to do, by the way, fans, when we're talking about this here, let me bring this here. Pick who you think makes the most sense, and whatever that means to you. When I say most sense, we kind of just mean like maybe realistic, but also you want them, right? If you really want a player, but you think it's just absolutely never going to happen, hey, that's up to you. You just pick who you think, I should say, makes most sense. That's the best way to go about this. So, who do you think makes the most sense? I'm going to copy and paste that, and we're going to do this here. So we're going to do Matt Duchesne versus Sam Bennett. Now, Jesse, I'm going to start the poll. It's officially started. Poll 1 of the day is there in the chat. When we look at these two guys, there's a lot to break down between them here. Let me find him. Here's Matt Duchesne. Again, career 53% on the faceoff dot, coming off an 82-point season on a 1-year deal. But we also have a guy like Sam Bennett, 47% on the dot, but incredible defensively, laying the body a bit more. When it comes down to these two guys, which do you think makes the most sense for Montreal? Because I think I have my answer, as much as I don't necessarily like either of them.
I think Sam Bennett out of the two makes more sense for the Montreal Canadiens. And I feel like they're going to look at him. Like they're going to give a good look. I would almost put Sam Bennett into one of those more likely guys just because of the interest. And they know that even if that production isn't there, it's quite as where they would want during the regular season, that he's that playoff type of guy. So I feel like he's kind of near up the ranks for me in terms of actually like probability of coming to the Montreal Canadiens this year. We know we got a lot of cap space to definitely deal with that. Going up all helps with that situation. I mean, Duchesne doesn't want to come to Canada maybe to end off his career. It's okay. I got the Oilers in the 3rd round anyway, so I'm more okay with that. I'm picking Sam Bennett here.
I agree. That's the thing, right? Like, Duchesne, there's a lot of factors pointing against it, right? Like, it just doesn't feel like he's going to Montreal. In terms of play style, it's hard to say he doesn't make sense, but like in terms of how he fits with the roster. But in terms of Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton going after someone, a guy who just signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with Dallas, he produced amazingly, he's playing great in the playoffs for them, and he's just like, he's in the States, he's been in the States forever, like you said, that whole Ottawa thing, like, there's just so many factors around Matt Duchesne that makes it feel like he's probably not going to Montreal. In terms of play style, great. Sam Bennett, on the other hand, fits the bill of a 2C for the Montreal Canadiens. The point production, though, does lack, with a career high this year of 51 points, but the thing with him, Jesse, you mentioned, not only is he more physical in the playoffs, he produces more in the playoffs and at the Four Nations. His numbers are great in those tournaments. I guess you call playoffs a tournament, but when the going gets tough, he shines. And that's something that you just love to have, especially on a team like the Habs right now. My only worry about them, so I think we're both in agreement, and I'm going to end the poll right now. We're going very quick with these polls today, so very sorry if we don't get to the chat. 80% in favor of Sam Bennett. No surprise there, Jesse. My one concern with Sam Bennett, though, the contract. If you're bringing in a guy like Sam Bennett, I'd be afraid to offer him somewhere between $7 and $8 million a year, because I know with the cap going up, it's okay. I feel like with the current core, the production you're getting from him, it'd probably end up being worth it. You know, one playoff series with Sam Bennett, you're like, oh my God, he's worth all the money in the world. Fair. I just worry about the long-term play of him in that contract. That would be my main concern.
That's it, you know, and that's why we're doing this here today. Like, Josh, like, I'm curious, even for yourself, like, who is like your kind of your preferred guy? I'm really kind of, and we will get to the bottom of that here. Like, keep us hanging a little bit, you know, but it's going to be very interesting to see again, right, for sure. But I know Sam Bennett, like, still checks a lot of boxes, though. You know, for me, it's like, again, you got those guys that you get to the regular season, you got the guys afterwards, like, playing in the playoffs when it really matters the most with, you know, an organization like Montreal, which really prides itself off being clutch when it really matters, having those big time overtime type of goals, like that matters here. That being said, it's like, I think they're still going to want a little bit more production. Like, we're trying to go for a home run here. Like, I mean, they alluded to us, right? They're the ones saying, like, we're talking to like superstars, like stars in this league, right? So you have to feel like, I mean, that's where we're setting the bar.
Yep, absolutely. And look, we want someone great, and that's something that we've made clear this whole time. And yeah, like a guy, I don't know, I want a bit more production from a guy like Bennett, but it makes a ton of sense at the same. Like, I feel like sometimes we underrate defensive impact as well. Like, having a guy like him on your team, like a super Dvorak who shines in the playoffs, you know, like, hey, that's not bad. But regardless, we're looking for someone big, a big star. And you know, speaking of stars, we do have our first super chat. Oh, we're not talking about Matt Duchene. I guess that's a star too. But our first super chat of the stream from Ethan. Ethan, thank you so much for the $10. Really appreciate your support as always. My top 2 picks for the number 2C are Byfield and McTavish, but my dream is Tage Thompson. A little foreshadowing there. We may or may not have all 3 of those guys coming up. Well, we know we at least have, spoiler, Tage Thompson's here today. Spoiler, that might be one of my favorites, but we're going to get into that a bit later. I want to shout out some people in the chat as well, trying to have a look here to see who's here. Mark, or hello, all you awesome Habs fans. Hello, Mark. Always good to have you here. Jason Patrick, may be able to get Byfield. The number 1 guy to get would be Velarde in a trade. It's unlikely, though, because the Jets are a wagon. Not anymore. Well, we'll see. But Velarde's a good one, too. Hey, boys, how about Nazem Kadri, says Derek. Here's the thing. There's so many guys that we don't even have today that we'll have to bring up in the future, but, like, so many great names. But, again, thank you, Ethan. Some great suggestions there. And you know what, Jesse? Why don't we move on to maybe a bit of a young versus old? And it's so tough to decide which 2 players to do here. Do you think it's time to at least put McTavish in here? What do you think about a McTavish starting right now with one of the more veteran guys?
We got to do it.
We got to do it. We love Mason McTavish, and a lot of you guys are talking about him. So we're going to start with Mason McTavish here, who, again, is a restricted free agent this year. So there's a lot of shenanigans that could go on. He, in my mind, is one of the prime candidates for an offer sheet because I think he is about to break out. Now, where are his stats? Here it is. 52% on the dot last year with Anaheim, 51% this year. For a 21, 22-year-old center taking the volume he's taking, that is really, really good. If you guys didn't know, 52 points, 22 goals this year after having 42 points in 64 games last year. He's one of these guys, Jesse. Someone is going to pay a lot for him, and they will not regret it. Now, Mason McTavish, very young player as well. Of course, 22 years old. It would take a lot probably to get him in a trade, but Anaheim's looking to add some guys as well. Let's pair him with maybe a more veteran option as well. A guy like this, a guy like Brock Nelson, a guy who is also, he's an unrestricted free agent. The problem with him is he's a lot older, and if you're getting him, it'd probably be for a short-term stopgap, but a guy who is proven, he has the goal scoring, point production to be that 2C. So this is a very interesting comparison. We're going to run the poll again. Hopefully I can paste it right. Dang it, I can't. Okay. Who do you think makes more sense? And we're going to copy that for sure this time. Mason McTavish or Brock Nelson. I have a funny feeling I know who it is. But again, reminder, this also does include, when we're saying makes most sense, we got to think about who is also more likely for the Habs to go after. I think, Jesse, this might be a hot take. I'll go first on this one. I genuinely think it makes more sense in the grand scheme of things in terms of likelihood plus current fit with this core for Brock Nelson to be the guy they go after, but I don't think it's as likely we actually land him as someone like McTavish, who we would probably have to trade for or offer sheet. I'm going to go with McTavish, but I actually think this is close. I would prefer McTavish by a long shot. I just think it'd be very, very tough to get him, as you said before, but a guy like Nelson, if you're signing him as a UFA, you're going to have to overpay for him to take him away from another team. And I just don't see that as something that Kent Hughes or Jeff Gorton's going to do.
Very interesting take. But because that is on the table as an option, I would put Brock Nelson as likelier to get.
Yep.
But I'm in the same boat with you, is that I'd prefer McTavish there, which is interesting, though, because Brock Nelson, again, like checks a couple boxes. And for me, it's like, while you can make the argument, and it's a very common one nowadays, it's that like, oh, that we need that young 2C to kind of grow with a Byfield. I mean, like with a McTavish, obviously that does make a lot of sense. But for me, again, like it's a lot of young players kind of all together. There does make sense of bringing that 2C that it actually helps your team, especially in the playoffs when it matters the most. The only caveat is that you would need to bring in that vet like this year, because by next year, I'm already considering Zooks like a vet. You know what I mean? Like already, he's already getting to that level where it's like, we don't really need another veteran with him in the top six. He's done the song and dance already. He already knows it. So that's what's very interesting. Again, like Josh, if we're announcing a video, later on this summer, announcing either one of these players, I'd be happy. I'd prefer McTavish because I think we can kind of grow there. Same time, I think there's a lot of benefit having somebody like a Nelson, like a Horvat who might get into some of the likelier candidates, in my opinion here. But again, Josh, like I would just want to give a shout out to the chat that again, Kadri is a good suggestion in all of this. 35 goals last year, 67 points. These are the guys you got to look at the periphery. We don't hear of all the time, like a Kadri, even like, Ryan O'Reilly's getting super old, but this guy is still playing very good hockey. Important notes, like guys like Trocheck, Hurdle. These are also guys we have to keep on our radar a little bit that also have their merit as well.
William Karlsson's another name out of Vegas, again with them making signing Jack Eichel a priority. He's a little bit expendable, former 40 goal scorer, hasn't been that for a number of years, let's be honest, but he's a solid player. And yeah, you mentioned like there's so many different guys we can go after. O'Reilly's two-way play. I see someone mention Derek Pavelzaka, wouldn't surprise me either, a guy we spoke about recently, Jesse. Guy like Barrett Hayton out of Utah, if they were ever willing to move on from the guy who just scored 20 goals. There's so many different names, but at the end of the day, like, we might have to do this again with a different set of people, because this is how crazy it is that all of these guys are legitimate targets, not just free agents, but also trade candidates. As we end the poll, Jesse, this one was an even bigger landslide than Bennett versus Duchesne, as Mason McTavish runs away with 82% of the vote. I'm also keeping track of all the winners. We will pit them head to head a little bit later as well. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that the fans are wonderful fans who are very, very smart, like you said. Like, he makes more sense in terms of what Montreal is building. And also, like, as much as we say it'd be unlikely to prime away from Anaheim, when you're an RFA, pretty much anything's on the table, right? I mean, you haven't agreed to an extension. So, like, you never really know. And with Anaheim, like, looking again, there's always talks about Zegras. And they got these young guys, they Cutter Gauthier, right, after trading away Jimmy Drysdale and Leo Carlson. And then they got Jackson Lacombe on defense. It's like, if maybe there's a guy that they're willing to move on from. Zegras is also another name I suppose we didn't even think about. I feel like I've desensitized myself to Zegras. He's cool. I'm not talking about him today, but I'm going to go through the chat again here, Jesse, because there's so many people giving some amazing names here. Oh my gosh, so many amazing people. A Canadian dude in Oz here again. Bit of a toss of all things. Duchesne would still have a connection to the Montreal Ottawa area that might still be a draw. Never really know. Some people saying Bennett's value is only between 5.5 and 6. Maybe true, but I think he might get more. Joseph Donovan, let's get them likes up and show your support for our boys. Habs died. Well, thank you, Joseph. I mean, look, I didn't want to say it. We have almost 300 people in here, though, and only 55 likes. What is that, Jesse? What kind of ratio is that? No, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. A like would really help. Don't feel obligated. We're already seeing people say no Marner. Nelson's more likely. McTavish versus Nelson's a no-brainer. McTavish, says Mark Orr, but if you put him against Bennett, I'm going Bennett. Nelson's just way too old. Jesse, that's the beauty about this, because we are going to go head-to-head a bit later, and I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything later, but I'm already excited about what we're going to see at the end here. I think this is going to be a bit unpredictable, eh?
For sure, because, again, like, you got to think of, like, the roster construction again and all this. Like, there is many teams, Josh, in the NHL. For example, the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that's going very far in the playoffs, has a good chance of winning it all in the type of system that they play, how well coached they are. Their 2C, Jack Roslovic, isn't a guy that gets like tremendous offensive production. And he hasn't really for like a long time, like 22 goals, 17 assists, 39 points. Like, that's the type of guy still that can be your 2C on a team that does very well. For sure, there is like play drivers around him. And that being said, in the system that they play, as you know, Josh, as a Minnesota Wild fan, it's like, at their center position, they don't have like some huge point getters at their 2C, but they still find a way to get in the playoffs. That's not exactly what we're going for, but it is interesting when you are studying teams around the league and what they have and how they're able to make certain situations work. Even if you look at like the Winnipeg Jets, like sometimes you look at their center depth and you see Nemestikov, basically playing top line in that top six. It's like, it doesn't need to be that huge point producing type of guy, but it really needs to kind of fit the team. You need to study teams around the NHL that are having success. So I think that is of note in this conversation.
Wouldn't it be funny? Just bring in Jack Roslovic, play him next to Liney, the guys that were traded for each other. Whoa, don't do that. You know who was playing 2C for the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs? It was Frederick Gaudreau. Now, look, there's some controversy there. Not about to get into this whole Marco Rossi situation. He's a guy that he was on the short list to talk about today. He might be in another one, again, because he's likely out of Minnesota. He's also an RFA, but he's very small. He's 5'9", 60 points this past year, but that was with Kaprizov. We'll have to wait and see. But look, there's a lot of great stuff coming in the chat here. Let's go hit that 100 mark, says Joseph. Yeah, we're almost there. Thank you all so much. We see a lot of people saying, hey, don't compare 22 to 34. I mean, hey, why not, though? It's fun. Young versus old. We're just trying to find one winner today. We're trying to find one winner, and that's one of the harder things to do. Now, it's also not just centers we have here today, Jesse. We have two very, very skilled wingers that you know what? We have two skilled wingers, and we have a defenseman. And I think you know the two wingers and defenseman I'm talking about. Who do we want to pair that defenseman with before I reveal who that is? Do you have any suggestions? Because I'm not even sure who I want to pair him with head-to-head right now.
Just go. First one comes to mind.
First one comes to mind. All right, we're gonna get Mitchie out of the way. So, look, I know. We don't want him on this team. I don't either. I'm not paying. Someone's gonna pay him a lot of money. It's gonna be San Jose. It's gonna be Chicago. Something like that. He's not a center, so that's why we're putting him in this part here. But we're gonna put him head to head against a defenseman because these guys are not centers. Sort of outside that center realm of target that we're talking about. Let me make sure I hit the right button here. Where is it? No, where is he? Where is he? There he is. So, right now, Jesse, this is such a difficult comparison, but I want to see the fans' perspective because I want to see what they have to say about Marner. I got a feeling this is going to be a landslide because Marner gives that top-end scoring, zero production when it matters most in crunch time. Incredible penalty killer, great at getting points when the games don't matter that much. Noah Dobson, very good offensive defenseman. He had like a 70-point season or 80-point season, something like that, just last year. 39 points this year. But he's a big right shot defenseman who's an RFA. A lot of people are saying he's a prime offer sheet candidate. And when it comes to fit on the Habs, Jesse, to me, it's no contest. I don't particularly love the idea of either of these guys because I just want to see Reinbach or Mailloux, whoever it is, come up and fill that right D role. And that's why these are kind of the non-2C options, but we have him here anyway, because not everyone can be an absolute perfect fit for Montreal. We got to have some fun as well. When it comes to Dobson versus Marner, for me, it's not even close. I think Noah Dobson makes way more sense. I think he's a more realistic target, but I'm curious to see if any of the fans see that point production from Marner and think, hey man, I can fix her.
I got tremendous support or faith in our boy Reinbacher, which is why I'm also cool on the idea of like not having to kind of put out that make an offer sheet to our boy Dobson there. That being said, it's like, so I would prefer Dobson over the situation, but yeah, I got faith in what's kind of coming up there. But Matthews is the issue in Toronto. It is not Mitch Marner. It's the leadership of this team. I've said it for a long time. I haven't been afraid to say the words lipstick on a pig by keeping that same core and expecting different results might have been said before on this podcast here, right? Like for me, it's like, I don't know. I've always seen more effort from Nylander. I've always, I don't know. I just felt like I'm seeing more effort, like his production in the playoffs better than Matthews once again here. Like Matthews is really that issue. That being said, it's like there is just so much baggage. Doesn't really fit the culture of the Montreal Canadiens, which I think is important while knowing that like Mitch Marner isn't the fit. It's kind of by knowing what we don't want to have that is narrowing down this list. It's like from Kent, you got to know that like culture matters, attitude matters. That's why like you might eliminate some guys. Like again, we're not trying to throw shade, but like Duchesne, anyone that you think there might be like a little bit of an issue with that, like that is not going to fit into this locker room. So when we're kind of doing this deduction of who's going to be that 2C for the Habs, you have to feel like that culture is going to be such a big fit in all of this as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And again, Jesse, when we think of the Montreal Canadiens, and this is one thing I've said to you, and I might even say it here, like the amount of times that, like the attitude we've seen from a lot of these Leafs players, and I don't want to turn this into a crap on the Leafs stream, as much as I think a lot of the fans probably wouldn't mind that. I mean, like, it's low-hanging fruit, but like, I don't know. the lack of effort when it matters most is something I've said we didn't see from Montreal this year. We fought till the end of every single game, giving it our all, and it's something we will never see with this core. The way that their players showed up when it matters most is something we have not and will never see with this Habs core, and bringing someone in who is at the core of that. Again, as much as I think Marner is getting more blame than he still deserves some, obviously, like 0 goal. Marner and Matthews both combined for 0 goals in their 6 career Game 7s, Jesse. 0 goals between your 2 most talented players in your 6 Game 7s. They don't show up. Nylander had 2 goals, 2 assists in his 6 Game 7s. Like, that's just, it's better, you know? So, I don't know. Like, I don't want to crap on Marner all the time here. I still think he's an unbelievable player, and I honestly think he'll succeed somewhere else. Maybe the culture is not his fault, but I just find it hard to spend the amount of money he's going to cost to bring him into Montreal, and I completely agree. But look, we're gonna end this poll here now. A lot of people saying like Mark or not really interested in Marner or Dobson. I tend to agree, but we're putting some names here. You know, I do see one name there, Sidney Crosby, Jesse, that we debated. Like I thought about. I would love him. I think though for him, he might have to be in part 2 if we do this part 2. Just simply because I feel like he's just never leaving Pittsburgh. I don't even think of him as a real possibility sometimes. Maybe we could even call an audible and bring him in here at the end as like him versus everyone else. But hey, we'll have to wait and see. But surprisingly though, Jesse, this was the closest poll yet. Dobson won by a landslide still. 79. Now, Google, for some reason, YouTube, it never adds to 100, but Marner got 20% of the vote. The next highest so far was Duchesne at 19. So technically, this was the closest in Marner versus Dobson. Does that surprise you at all? I mean, it's still far away, though.
Yeah, and I don't think that either of them are exactly what we kind of need for this team, Josh. But like speaking about like players that like Crosby that would be hard to get, but again, like I want to throw one name out there, and I'll give the reason of even though why it would be tough that there could be a chance, and that's Wyatt Johnston. Again, he's playing 3C for the Dallas Stars right now. But we know that, like, the Stars, they got centers to burn right now. They're probably going to be in a little bit of a cap situation there. Obviously, we know that contract, it's already kind of finalized with him. He's long-term. I'm okay with doing that. For me, it's like, this is a 3C, but obviously come to Montreal. That 2C, if we're talking about, like, ideal players, like, for me, Wyatt Johnston is, like, right up there with a McTavish, with a Byfield.
He was my number 1 offer sheet target by far until he signed that extension when Rantanen came there. So like, I really like this take, Jesse, because honestly, like Johnston, if there was ever a world that Dallas was trading him, even though they did just extend him, I would be absolutely all over this. Now, they do have a guy, Maverick Bourque, who could very well be a bit expendable. I don't know how much he plays center, but he hasn't even played that much recently. He's been like occasionally the 13th forward for them, and he's still a good, talented young player. Of course, they traded away Stankoven, but Johnston's such a good player. Again, I think it's very unlikely, but I love the take because I think it's very interesting. And you know what? Why don't we pair him with another right shot center? Because I'm trying to figure out who to pair with who here. I'm setting up. I'm ready for a bit of a couple bangers coming up here now. Why don't we pair Wyatt Johnston with? Well, let's see. What about this fella? What about Matt Barzal? Because they're both right shot centers. Barzal is a little bit older, of course, a few years older, but they're both highly, highly, highly skilled. They both have incredible career resumes. And, you know, they're both still young enough that they fit within the Habs core. Barzal already under a big contract. Johnston also already under a big contract. It's not that crazy to kind of put him into this same realm of possibility, even though I feel like, you know, the Islanders are probably more likely to sell than the Dallas Stars. I would prefer a Wyatt Johnston. I think he's less likely. So I think my vote would go to Barzal as much as, like I told you, like I'm a huge Wyatt Johnston fan. And if there was ever a chance, I would absolutely be knocking on that door.
Barzal is more likely for sure. But obviously, you know, Kent is going to have to pick up that phone, right? And kind of have that conversation. And you got to feel like he's going to want to start out like, you know, really aim big and kind of work from there, right? But he's not going to want to go too far down that list, given that all the picks and the ammunition that he has. It's just, that's what changes everything. Like we are sometimes underestimating the value of even just one first round pick. Like, you can get some good players in the NHL for one first round pick, let alone how many of those we have, other picks, prospects, roster players on top of that, right? So I think it's very interesting to look at. Again, it's like the only reason why I bring this up too is when it's a Western Conference team, I find that maybe being a little bit more likely.
Yeah.
Again, you know, there has been kind of a little bit of a precedent lately with the Avalanche of showing that even though the teams give out big contracts, there has been a little bit of buyer's remorse where I'm not saying that's going to happen with Johnston, but that like they know that they can't have too many guys on the roster making too much money. I think that they're probably thinking about that ahead of time. Again, somebody like Barzal, Horvat, extremely much more likely to come to Montreal. But like, if you're Kent Hughes, you are absolutely doing your due diligence on Wyatt Johnston.
Yeah, absolutely have to. And like, honestly, I just think he's better all around. Because like Barzal is like a lot of people are saying, it's like, it just feels like a bit of a Band-Aid. And I kind of agree in the sense that like, he fills that gap, but it's more like because he's available this year, but he is injury prone, which is the Band-Aid thing as well. It's like, I don't know, like he's a right-hand shot, which we would prefer a left-hand shot center, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to be a make or break if the player is a good fit. But still, I mean, career 42.3% on the dot, didn't take very many faceoffs at all in 23-24. He took a lot of faceoffs earlier in his career, but he was always between, like, his career high is 46.3% in a season where he had 59 points. Like, yes, he had 80 points, mostly as a winger last year. I just feel like Barzal doesn't feel right. Wyatt Johnston feels right. Matt Barzal doesn't. But Wyatt Johnston just signed an extension because Mikko Rantanen came there. So it's like, it's so hard to decide between these two. And Jesse, that's reflected in the poll right now. A lot of people are not very happy about the idea of Barzal. Barzal, the Band-Aid. I prefer them not acting this year than go get Barzal. Barzal is brittle, just like Dach. No thanks. Horvat plays the game and Montreal needs more than Barzal. Johnston for the win on this one, says Jason. I agree. But again, we got to think, do you guys genuinely think that Johnston is a realistic guy who can get traded? Because I think Barzal could be, but we'll let that run for a bit. I see a Canadian dude in Oz saying Ryan Donato plays center and wing, 31 goals, 62 points. Had a great year last year, $2 million deal with Chicago. Maybe a quick comment on Donato while we let this very close vote finish up, because I want to let every single one of you, even if you're not subscribed, you can vote on this. Ryan Donato, Jesse, he's not a name that I wanted to put in here because this is by far his career high. He absolutely blossomed in Chicago, playing a bit with Connor Bedard, was great on the power play. I don't see 31 goals as something he can replicate. I see him as one of those risky moves, could pay off. Maybe he had this crazy career high. I don't know. I think there's a reason we didn't put Donato here, but he is a very interesting name to bring up regardless.
And he's been brought up in other circles as well for the amazing season that he has had last year. That being said, like, I think that, for myself, we just want to see a little bit more body work. And that's only because we've been a little bit burned in this kind of past situation with Kirby, Dach, and to a lesser extent, also Alex Newhook, of just maybe not getting that point production that we're kind of, as advertised, kind of hoping for there. So that's probably the only reason there.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, look, he's a great suggestion for sure, but yeah, tough there. I see a lot of people saying Matt Duchene. Well, we already got through the Matt Duchene vote. For those of you saying Matt Duchene, if you missed it, you can go back to the start. That was the first poll we did. He got smoked by Sam Bennett. So sorry to you, Matt Duchene truthers. Sam Bennett has moved on in that front, but just to keep track right now, as I am going to go end the poll, you guys, Donato at $2 million isn't an expensive gamble, but I'm pretty sure he's a free agent. Canadian dude in Oz, I'm pretty sure he's a UFA, unless I'm mistaken, and he's going to get a lot more than $2 million. Unless I don't think he's available for trade. Maybe I'm wrong, but correct me if I am. But get your last votes in right now. You got about 10 seconds before I end the poll, and yeah, we're going to have to see this, Jesse. But look, when we have a couple other players, we have I think 4 names left now, right? I think we have Horvat. I think we have Byfield. I think we have Jordan Kyrou. And we have Tage Thompson. So when we're looking at these 4, Kyrou is the only one that's really not a center. So it's tough to match these up. And I think I know our 2 favorites. And I think it's Byfield and Horvat in our sense of like, so I don't want to put them head to head quite yet. What do you think about a little Byfield versus Kyrou action right now? I think that could be interesting. 2 guys where there's not that many trade talks. 2 guys that bring very different things to the table. 2 guys that have been rumored to be available. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, 2 players I like. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, we'll end the poll. The official winner of this poll is Wyatt Johnston. Wyatt Johnston wins 53-46. That's not how math works, Google, but thank you very much. I think it was probably 45-41, the votes, something like that. But bye-bye, Matt Barzal, eliminated. Wyatt Johnston, a name you came in last minute with, Jesse, and you know what? He wins the first round. Bit of an upset there. A guy that we're not really talking about too much, but if Dallas is ever looking to move on from him, hey, that's what a lot of the fans are saying. Don't want Barzal. That could be a very interesting option. So Let's move on to this banger of a round right now, and we're starting with, not him, Jordan Kyrou. Now, there were some talks a couple weeks ago, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, that Jordan Kyrou might be on the outs in St. Louis because his no movement clause kicks in, I believe, as soon as next season's contract starts. So I think July 1st, unless I'm mistaken. But regardless, it kicks in very, very soon. So Jordan Kyrou, unbelievable player. He has a long history of producing. This guy's been basically a point per game player, 35 to 40 goal scorer for many, many years, Jesse. He's listed as a center in a lot of places. He doesn't take faceoffs. Don't know if he'd actually ever play center in the NHL at this point, but regardless, he's a very, very talented winger. There are some Blues fans who are concerned about his softness and his not showing up that much in the playoffs, but at the same time, there have been lots of times where he has shown up and been one of their better players for stretches. I understand the concern of him being soft, but to me, Jordan Kyrou is one of these guys that, like, if he's available, his contract is really not that bad. You have him for a decent term, I think 6 more years at I think it was less than $8 million. Like, for a guy that can get you that kind of production, I really wouldn't mind it. And look, I know you have your own thoughts on Byfield too, so maybe I have my Kyrou segment. Why don't you talk about Byfield and maybe convince the fans there?
Well, absolutely. No, we see Byfield. Like, obviously, I think there's a very high chance, Josh, that Demidov does replace Slav on that first line. I don't think it's a question of if that's going to happen, but really when. Even though, obviously, Slav does such a great job on that line, I could just see Demidov, just the skill, just how we got into that power play so quick, getting on there, which would create a very interesting second line of imagine Byfield and Slav. And you could say that their skills are somewhat kind of too, like, close to each other to maybe to have on a line, but I think it would be very interesting all the same. It kind of gives you a lot of freedom of what type of kind of finisher probably you're looking to also have on that line in terms of a sniper. So yeah, Byfield, obviously very interesting player for many reasons, really kind of growing into his own. I feel like he really fits that rush style of offense that we really like to play. But Josh, like, I'm interested to see how this next round, because I mean that both these players really have their merits. Like, Kyrou for me is a guy that when you're watching the Blues, like, stands out. I'm definitely going with Byfield here, but like, Kyrou's an interesting player. We definitely need to take care of some business with our 2 seed before we're looking to bring anything on. But I mean, what the Blues did this year, getting the playoffs, impressive. 36 goals, 70 points from Jordan Kyrou, also very impressive. Like, the eye test is there, right? But obviously those playoff performances do kind of matter. But for me, he's a very interesting young player.
Yeah, like, he's straight up a young star. Now, again, there is a lot of people saying he's soft. I haven't seen that as much when I watch him. I think Blues fans maybe say that a lot. So maybe I'm missing the big negative here with Kyrou, as this is currently a pretty big runaway poll. But honestly, I completely agree with you. I mean, when it comes down to these two players, there's one guy that fits the youth movement. He's not as established in terms of point getting, but Quinton Byfield, when you watch him on the ice, Jesse, he dominates. I mean, it's just like he's a center, obviously, but when he's coming, he's listed as a right winger on HockeyDB, but he plays a lot of center. And when he goes down, like, when he's going downhill, there's not many players that you'd be more scared of seeing. Like, obviously, there's some crazy players, like, we're talking to Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon's like the one guy, Connor McDavid. But Quinton Byfield, his size, 6'5", 225, when he's barreling in on you, he's learning how to use his size more and more every year. His production, Jesse, is very similar to Juraj Slafkovsky, again, in terms of goals and assists. He showed up in the playoffs last year, and pretty much every time he's been in the playoffs, even in his 22-point season in 22-23, 4 points in 6 playoff games. Last year, 4 points in 5 playoff games. This year, 3 goals, 4 points in 6 playoff games. Byfield's there, game in, game out, making a difference. He fits the youth movement. My only question, though, is with rumors of Kyrou potentially being on the way out, we have heard some rumblings about Byfield. Unless Ken Holland really, really wants to go all in for a Stanley Cup right now, which honestly would not shock me. I don't trust Ken Holland to do the right thing. No shade to Ken. No, yes, a little bit of shade to Ken Holland. He doesn't have a great track record. I feel like Byfield, Jesse, is less likely to actually be available in a trade, but he's maybe the single number one target in terms of, like, guys that, if they're ever available, just perfectly fit exactly what we're going for. Not to mention, his contract really isn't that bad either.
For sure. And that's why there would be such a big cause for somebody like a McTavish, a Byfield, obviously, for what they can kind of bring, and obviously kind of growing with this team over time. So that would be, you know, obviously we need to be looking at that when we're kind of comparing all these different things.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of things there. We're going to end the poll. It ended up being a little bit closer. It actually was closer than the Marner-Dobson one, but Quinton Byfield does win in a pretty big landslide. No surprise there. 78 to, I guess, 22. I hate looking at these numbers. Like, whoever decided to round down on percentages, how? Like, why? It's just so counterintuitive. Anyway, final one, Jesse. This one is really interesting because this is, again, we never know what's happening in Buffalo. There's some other names in Buffalo, like JJ Peterka, that we could very well talk about. His name has been circulating in trade rumors as well. But there's a certain name in Buffalo. This is my guy. But he's going to go up against some pretty tough competition. Because there's a certain guy in Bo Horvat that is the number one guy that we've seen everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. He's 30 years old. Again, if you get the contract, you got him until he's 36, 37, which you wonder how it's gonna go when he gets later in his career. But looking at Bo Horvat, I mean, look, this guy 54% career on the faceoff dot, 58% last year, consistently right around the top of the NHL, has a history of being a 30-40 goal scorer, 31 goals in 49 games, mind you. That's almost a 50 goal pace with Vancouver in 22-23 when he played with JT Miller. And now he's on an Islanders team. He has some good players next to him. But you just imagine with a good winger who can set him up a lot more. A guy like Demidov, you never know, right? That could work well. Horvat's the one guy that we hear all the time, Jesse. With the Islanders changing management, potentially blowing things up, Lou Lamoriello on the outs. There's not many people that fit the bill better than Horvat in terms of an established guy. You get a veteran presence alongside your young guys. You get leadership. He was the captain of the Canucks. He's in trade rumors every single day. There's very few people that are like, it just makes sense. Like, if I woke up tomorrow, if I was to say, of all these guys, which would I be like least surprised waking up tomorrow and seeing be a Montreal Canadian? It's Bo Horvat. And I think of all these guys, like, he just makes the most sense on that front. However, my personal pick, Tage Thompson. You never know what's happened in Buffalo. There's rumors swirling of like different reporters for different teams saying, hey, if I was this manager, I would call Buffalo, see what they do for Tage Thompson. Not that Tage Thompson is available, but there's insiders saying like, I would call about him. 44 goals, 72 points this year, Jesse. 47 goals 2 years ago. Right-hand shot center. 27 years old, 6'6", 220. Is there even a center in the league that maybe fits the bill better for what Montreal is looking for than Tage Thompson?
Absolutely. You know, it's like definitely who I would prefer over a Horvat. Like, Horvat is more likely, but I would definitely prefer a Thompson. And, you know, obviously when we're kind of evaluating trades and who could be the 2C, we sometimes think like, okay, like teams within like the same conference or division, they don't want to trade with each other. But I mean, we just saw it last year's trade deadline, Buffalo Sabres trading Dylan Cousins right in the Atlantic to the Senators. So there is a precedent of trades sometimes being done, even though these teams are close or seeming like they're somewhat in the same kind of rebuild or coming out of it type of phase, right? Because technically Buffalo and Ottawa should be in that same gear of getting into the playoffs, right? But obviously not the case right now. What's very interesting though is that like when we're looking at Horvat, like why he is the most likely probably at the top of the list, besides again some of those dark horses like a Trocheck, like a Hurdle who you can never kind of rule out with Kent Hughes. Is that like when we're talking about face-offs, like that's a check. Like you want to bring in a guy that we need possession of the puck. That's a place for Montreal to improve upon. That's not lost on the Montreal Canadiens. They know this. Culture, obviously, as you mentioned, Horvat, he's a great fit there as well. There's the opportunity of, you know, obviously with so much change with the Islanders and them not having like kind of a perfect storm of needing a change and then they need so many picks. We know with Lou Lamoriello that was never going to happen. Somehow it changed, so this conversation with Horvat is extremely more relevant. And then lastly, but probably most importantly, he fits in terms of what we're looking for in terms of the point production. So I still affirm, like, if you were to ask me, like, and we should maybe even do this as a poll, like, is it more likely that the Habs get a vet or kind of what we consider a young gun 2C? It's more likely that they end up with a vet, obviously, because of we know the implications teams when they have young players, they're trying to build and develop this. And it's only because the Kirby Dach experiment didn't work out. We were trying to do the same thing to avoid a situation where we might need to take on a longer contract in Horvat. Like, there was a reason, there was a method for the madness of why Kent Hughes tried to do this to kind of, but again, I think kind of going with the flow, it could be kind of a blessing in disguise with all that veteran leadership, fitting that culture. So some very, very strong cases on his side of this argument.
Yeah, like, again, for me, as much as I love Tage Thompson, he would be a dream. I think it's just kind of like, in terms of making sense, there's no contest. I think Bo Horvat just, again, like I said, would be like Thompson fits best. I just think he's a lot less likely to actually be traded for and would be a lot more difficult to acquire. But hey, you know what it is. We'll have to wait and see. As actually, I look at the poll, and right now I'm actually surprised. Horvat is losing by a decent margin. And again, hey, look, that's up to the fans. Again, we just want you to vote with which makes the most sense. So it might stay the same. Just want to make sure that everyone's voting the same way in terms of what you think makes the most sense for the Montreal Canadiens, not what you would want maybe more. But then again, it's up to you. So like, I honestly think like, I think Horvat makes more sense in terms of like waking up tomorrow and what we would see. But Tage Thompson's absolutely the guy that we'd rather. So you know what? I guess the poll's starting to swing a bit, but I know it's going back. I'm gonna end it. Tage Thompson with the upset, Jesse. I really thought, I think Tage Thompson is a wow. Big time wow. I did not expect that, to be completely honest. Yeah, I mean, I would prefer Tage Thompson. I just don't think it's nearly as likely as Horvat. So that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. You should put none, says Novi. That's not what we're here to do. We are here to have fun and pick a winner. Why would we put none? No, we're going picking a winner. I can't wait to see this. So we got to move on. So Jesse, the first round is done. We have interesting. So we have center, defenseman, center. Look, so we can get him out of the way early. I say we get Dobson in here because I think we'll put some other 2Cs. Why don't we put, I wouldn't mind putting like trying to reseed these guys. Well, why don't we reseed these guys? I don't even know. Let's see here. You got any idea of maybe who we could, do you want to do like a 1 versus 8 or 1 versus, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You want to do a 1v6, 2v4, wait, that doesn't work. One sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1v6, 2v5, 3v4. You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any idea who the 1 seed is? Byfield?
Yeah, or McTavish.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Let's do 1 and 2 Byfield McTavish so they don't go against each other. It doesn't matter which one they are. I think Dobson, I think Wyatt Johnston is just probably less likely, so I might put him as like a 6, but it's not really well, Johnson and Dobson can be 5 and 6, whatever, I think. And then Tage and Bennett, I think in the middle, that can be the matchup the first round. How does that sound?
Do it.
All right, let's do it. So let's start with the 3v4 matchup. Let's go right back to Tage Thompson, the surprise winner here. Thompson's big, young with better numbers. I agree. Tage would cost more in the trade. Hey, we can afford to get Tage, I guess. Why not go right back to him? We were going to end this off. We got 3 rounds. Well, now that I think about it, there's going to be 3 winners from this. And then I guess we just do head-to-head for the final round, right? Yeah, head-to-head. Yeah. So 2 rounds left, guys. Or 3. Nope, wrong. 3, 4. 4 rounds left. Let's start with this one. And let's go to the 3 versus 4, and we're going back to a guy that we talked about a lot earlier. It's Sam Bennett. So this one's going to be Sam Bennett versus Tage Thompson. And I know we've already kind of done the player breakdowns, Jesse, on both these guys. I have a funny feeling I know who fans are gonna vote for here because again, the fans love Tage Thompson, and that's fair. I love Tage Thompson. I still think Sam Bennett is a much more realistic scenario in terms of age, in terms of style of play. He brings an element to the Habs forward core, especially as someone who can play in the top 6 that we don't really have in the top 6 yet. And I think it could work a lot. I just worry about how much you'd have to pay him and whether he'd actually leave Florida. Whereas Tage Thompson, on the other hand, not him, Tage Thompson, I wonder if Buffalo would ever move him, but crazier things have happened. So we're going to put the poll out there. What's your first lean on this? I think my lean, again, I would much rather Tage Thompson, but I still think Sam Bennett ultimately does. Tage Thompson is my favorite player of all of these. I still just think in terms of something the Habs would actually be able to do, Sam Bennett makes more sense. Screw it, I'm going to vote Tage Thompson. I don't care. Maybe I'll ride with the fans. I'll ride or die with Tage. What about you?
Sam Bennett is definitely more likely in this situation for sure. That being said, is like when Montreal Canadiens were building this team, they said they wanted to make it first more of an offensive team. We're changing from the Bergevin era, which was defense first. Now it's offense first. Having a Tage Thompson is really in line with that of getting a 2C, quasi 1C. And that's kind of that two-headed snake is that ideal world. And that's why Habs fans are so excited about this. You never know what to expect with Buffalo. Like, they're a complete wild card. Like, we're totally right with considering how much ammunition that we have, you know, to be able to do this. Obviously, they're probably going to want to hold on to everything to Tage Thompson for dear life and just pray that he doesn't demand a trade at some point in time. So Bennett is way more likely here. Thompson is preferred. If I had to answer this honestly, like, I like Bennett is just incredibly more likely to come to the Montreal Canadiens. Like people are probably going to answer Thompson, but like Bennett and like Horvat, those are the guys that are like and Barzell, Nelson, those are the most likely candidates to end up in Montreal.
Yeah, and again, like it's tough too to balance, like in your head when you're thinking, like, how do I balance how much this guy would actually be, like Tage Thompson's a perfect fit for the team versus Bennett's a good fit, but a lot more likely. Like, how do you balance these things? That's the difficult thing here, and it's also why, like, I think, you know, there's a reason Tage Thompson was winning, because it's like Horvat, again, older than Bennett. Horvat, you worry about the long-term end of that contract. Maybe the same for Bennett, but Thompson is like, the only worry with Tage is like, is he even available? And I feel like that's the only concern, which honestly does kind of make some sense, but it's a pretty big what if. But I saw a nice comment here from Jason Patrick saying, never underestimate Buffalo's ability to be Buffalo. I'm picking Thompson. So, you know, but I feel like, though, if they give Tage Thompson, Jesse, my big worry is this. If Buffalo's ever shopping him, what does Montreal even have that will entice them to give up a former 94-point getter, 47 goal scorer, 44 this past year? They're starting with someone like Demidov. They're starting with someone like Slav on the phone call, in which case Kent Hughes is going to hang up within 2 seconds, because why would we do that? I think that doesn't make any sense. So that's my concern here, but we'll have to go to the chat as this is a 3v4 matchup. Winner moves on. It's actually close right now. I'm going to leave it for a second and just read some chats, Jesse. Ethan saying it's Tage. We got a couple people picking Tage. Tage. Thompson's big and young. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, someone's saying Will Cooley, says Sebastian Leclerc. Will Cooley's another interesting name, Jesse. I'm going to read just a fun, usually it's channel members getting the readouts here. I'm just going to read this fun little trade proposal to you while we wait for these votes to trickle in, because it is close. Nas26 says, to Philadelphia, Guhle and 17th pick in the draft. Montreal gets 6th overall pick. And that's it. Guhle and 17 for 6, and we get our pick of Hagens, Frundell, Desnoyers, or O'Brien. I'm not doing that. I'm good with 16 and 17. Montreal has a pretty good history of drafting there, including Cayden Guhle, including around there Cole Caufield. It's an interesting thought, though, for sure. The idea of trading up in this draft, Jesse, to maybe acquire a center higher up. I think Guhle and 17 is not actually that far off from a realistic value scenario. I don't think Montreal would ever do that, but what are your thoughts just quickly as we let the votes trickle in on trading up at the draft to try and snag someone?
I don't think it quite fits like the need that we would have. Like, I think like if we're trading picks to get more some immediate type of needs right now, just fitting our timeline that we're looking for.
I agree, because we draft a center now. It's like, okay, he'll be ready in 4 years. Like, he might be ready in 2 years, but so will Michael Hage. And it's like, Owen Beck's coming. Anyway, but we're going to end the poll there, Jesse, as we do have a few to get going through, trying to get this done fairly quickly now. Sam Bennett wins. Sam Bennett beats Tage Thompson. So that means that's actually very interesting. So we're going to eliminate Tage Thompson. So Sam Bennett beat Tage Thompson, and Tage Thompson beat Bo Horvat by a bit. Not something I expected. I wasn't expecting the Sam Bennett love, but honestly, Jesse, fresh off this Florida 6-1 win, I think fans are maybe pretty high on this style of play. Are you thinking the same thing?
Well, and we've been seeing that in the comments for a minute. He's one of the first names and one of the loudest ones that we've kind of been hearing for a minute. Obviously, like, you know, there's a certain type of play that really allows you to win in the playoffs. And I think a lot of Habs fans, they're kind of hungry for that type of play.
Yeah, they absolutely are. All right, well, we're going to move on right now as we got some very interesting guys coming up. We're going to do the 2v5, and that is, I think I know who the winner of this one is before we even get into it. This one's going to be Noah Dobson versus Mason McTavish. Jesse, this is a clear-cut winner for me. It's Mason McTavish. They're both restricted free agents, which means there's going to be some shenanigans. Even if it's not from Montreal, it's going to be from someone. I know this is going to happen. To me, McTavish, Dobson, I think this is going to be a quick one. I'm not going to say who I think is going to win. Just going to let the fan know I am. It's going to be Mason McTavish. I think he's a center. He fills that 2C role. I think we have so many good right-hand defensemen that Dobson's interesting, but his defensive woes, if you didn't like Matheson's defense, you're not going to like Dobson. Incredibly talented player. I don't think he's a fit at this moment. I think this vote's going to be a landslide very quick. See what the fans say. McTavish runs away with it. What do you think?
Yeah. I am interested in a Dobson type of move, maybe if Matheson was kind of going the other way, and that just to kind of balance it out. But yeah, I think obviously there's type of player that we're looking for to be a part of our picture. And for Dobson, he is kind of interesting. But again, with Reinbacher, him getting that healthy, that play, there's a reason we drafted for him, and we're definitely going to let him do his thing at that position.
Yeah, for sure. This is Reinbacher's time. It's Logan Mailloux, honestly, has been shining so far for Laval as well. Like, one of these names we can't just drop by the wayside. Obviously, Reinbacher's highly touted, but I still think it's going to be Reinbacher. You never know, though. The fact that we even are having this discussion tells me Dobson's not the choice. I don't want to let this one drag on for too long. Quickly get in your votes. Wow, a lot of it. Okay, so we're going to end this one pretty quick. We did have a lot of votes coming in there really quick. Remember to get your votes in fast. That was 70 votes very quickly. Mason McTavish runs away with it in the landslide. Absolutely no surprise. All right, final one of this round, Jesse. Mason McTavish wins. Bye-bye Noah Dobson. This is going to be the 6v1. And so we're starting this one with Quinton Byfield, and it's going to be Byfield versus Wyatt Johnston. To me, again, there's a very clear winner here. I love Wyatt Johnston as a player. It was not a number one offer sheet target. He's a center. I just think it's insanely unlikely. Dallas is poised to potentially go all the way. We don't know. They're going to face a tough Edmonton team. Regardless, they're in the conference finals. Unbelievable team. They locked up Rantanen long-term. They have Hintz long-term. They have Heiskanen. They have Thomas Harley. Wyatt Johnston just signed a big extension. Whereas Quinton Byfield on a great contract, LA is coming out of their contention window. You really never know what they're looking like for the future. I think of these two, Byfield is not only more likely to be traded, but also a better fit for the Montreal Canadiens. What are your thoughts?
I would prefer Wyatt Johnston just from a pure offensive production. I feel like he would be a better fit with the Montreal Canadiens, but I feel like Quinton Byfield is much more likely, just given the fact that, the Kings are looking to change. They keep having that same, obviously, result, losing to the Edmonton Oilers first round every year for a minute. So it's kind of creating a little bit of an opening there where maybe otherwise it's not really kind of a conversation there. That being said, two very interesting dynamic players, which both teams in a lot of ways you can make an argument, like Wyatt Johnston, like they have big plans. Like the Stars are so good at like drafting, but like they obviously, like, this is a type of guy that you can help build your team really around, especially at the age that he is right now. I love both players. I think it would be phenomenal. I think it's also important to still have these type of guys on our radar, especially Wyatt Johnston. While I think Byfield is more likely, there's also, you could say that Stars, you can make the argument that they're playing with found money. They're having, with whether it's Hintz, so many different guys that are really succeeding over there, that you feel like once you have a Wyatt Johnston in your bottom six, it's like, okay, they value him, right? But is there a world where we could kind of overpay, because there's only so many guys that you can have in that top six, and it looks like they might have, besides Duchesne, some guys to hold that down for a quick minute there. So again, Byfield I think more likely, but Johnston definitely a phenomenal player.
Yeah, like it's hard to pass on the idea of Wyatt Johnston. Again, it's like there are zero reports of him getting traded, and he just signed a big extension, and it's like that's more of like a dream scenario, and I would love him, Jesse. I think same thing with Tage Thompson. It's like those two guys, if ever available, would love them. But by all accounts, they're not, and that's tough. Which is why, again, my vote is for Quinton Byfield, and the fans' vote is Quinton Byfield. And yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But I love that Wyatt Johnston was a piece of conversation for today, because I love talking about him, Jesse. He was a great addition by you. And honestly, happy he made it this far. Happy he won that first round versus Barzal, because I think it shows what the fan base is feeling. As we are on to the final thing. Now, if you guys have any chats, any thoughts, channel members, again, will answer first. Super chats, we will also answer. Want to give the fans a little bit of time to think, to ponder over this final three, Jesse, as it's going to be Sam Bennett versus Mason McTavish versus Quinton Byfield. Going to read some chats in a second. What are your thoughts heading into this final thing? Maybe without giving away a spoiler, because I think this is, honestly, it's not the three I would have picked to make the finals heading into this. Maybe. I think Horvat would have been on my list. I think I might have even had Horvat, McTavish, and Byfield on my list for, like, in terms of making sense of actually potentially getting them in terms of guys who might be available and also fit. I'm a little bit surprised Bennett made this far, but I kind of like it as well, showing the fan base really values this grit. It's why we love guys like Arber, like Florian, and guys that are really just pegged as winners.
And also, we're looking at guys where there is a probability of this happening, because again, this is where you kind of have a fighter's chance, a puncher's chance of getting a Sam Bennett, where, like, obviously a McTavish and a Byfield, while they're going to pick up the phone, that's going to be a much harder deal to try and make. I would put Bennett as the most likely out of all of these, really. You can make an argument that even with a Bennett, if, like, we have, Demidov that's coming into his own, imagine what a combination, right? Like, that's definitely some different styles coming together, that obviously if you're having a Demidov having some crazy production, maybe having somebody with a little bit of sandpaper there can make a little bit of sense constitutionally. This is really tough, though, because it's like there's the most likely Bennett, but that's also a balance between, that Kent Hughes is a winner. He wins every deal he's going into. Yeah. So he's going gunning. Like, I feel like he's going to definitely kick tires on both McTavish and Byfield before kind of coming to a Bennett type of situation here. This is really tough to say. Like, I would prefer a Byfield or a McTavish over Bennett. I would say that Bennett's probably the most likely in this situation here. If we're going by pure likelihood, you have to vote like Bennett, in my opinion. Like, who am I even preferring between a McTavish and a Byfield? That's a tough one to say, though, just in pure of, like, let's say they were both available. Josh, like, okay, maybe I'll take a McTavish just because, like, for me, I like kind of just the difference of Slav. Again, I made the argument that maybe they could work well together. Who in the ideal world are you taking? Like, McTavish, or are you taking Byfield? Let's say they're both on the table for a reasonable, similar type deals.
I think Byfield, but I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I got to see him play live, and when I watched him, I was like, holy smokes, this guy, like, he had that gravity, like, that's one of those factors that you have hard to describe. So I am fully admittedly a bit biased in this take because I've never seen Mason McTavish live. When I saw Byfield live, it was a preseason game, so it's hard to judge anything. This is the most stupid biased take of all time. When I watched him on the ice, he looked bigger, faster, stronger than everyone. And there were times where he'd get into the offensive zone again. Like, it's not like he went in and scored 4 goals or anything, but it just looked like a guy playing junior hockey who was just bigger, faster, stronger than everyone. And he was doing it like it was Panthers versus Kings in the preseason. And the full lineup was there. Barkov was there. He scored a goal. Like, they were trying. And Byfield was the guy that stood out the most to me when I was watching. And that's maybe not the best criteria. Because, again, face-offs, meh. And, like, his point production, like, career high of 55 points. He's still young. And he might never be that 60-point guy. I think McTavish, Jesse, is the guy who is more likely to go out and get you 70, 80 points a year as a 2C, which is crazy, maybe 65, 70 points. And I think he's a better stylistic fit with probably whoever else he's going to play with. So I completely agree with you on that. Better at faceoffs. I think McTavish does make more sense. I think I would rather Byfield, but Bennett is the most likely. So anyway, it's time to put this to the fans. Before we get to this, 14 likes away from 150. That's our big goal every stream. Let us know if you're enjoying this stream as well. This is a bit of a new thing for us. We've done tier lists before. This is so much fun. Like, I'm having a ton of fun talking to all you guys, seeing the incredible takes here in the chat. Some great ones. Offer she gave Velarde. Very interesting takes coming in chat here. We're going to make the poll, Jesse. And reminder to everyone in chat, before you vote, who do you think makes more sense? So you need to balance who you want on Montreal with who you actually think is a realistic target, who is actually available. Like like we said, maybe Byfield's the biggest, the strongest, that fits best with what Jeff Gorton has been saying, a big energy guy down the middle. It's exactly Byfield. Mason McTavish is young, poised to be a very, very good point scorer, incredibly skilled, and good on the faceoff dot. He's not small either at 6'1", RFA. Sam Bennett is a UFA, the most likely guy to go out and just sign a UFA, but he'd be longer term, so maybe that doesn't make as much sense to you. Need to see, just reminder of all that before we get to the voting, as we're going to put it to the fans, Jesse. Maybe just another little talk on Sam Bennett, since we just spent a lot of that time speaking about McTavish and Byfield. I want to just go back to Sam Bennett for a bit. What would be your limit on a term for him? Because I have to imagine that if we're talking about Sam Bennett, I keep going to Duchesne by accident, like, he's going to get a 7-year deal from someone, right? Would you even be comfortable signing him to a 7-year deal? Maybe that'll even play into this vote.
Well, and that's why, like, I don't mind kind of offering a King's ransom in terms of some of these younger guys. Like, I would definitely, if preferred, go the trade route because we have so many picks, so many prospects. And again, like, that is worth a fair amount, right? Like, considering what we have. And not only, like, should we do that because you can only have so many prospects getting the lineup anyway, like, we should cash in on this and really kind of putting it together. That being said, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of risk kind of involved there. And that's what makes it more likely. But again, it's like there is so much more risk kind of involved with getting a Sam Bennett for like 7 years. Mm-hmm. You have to feel like, okay, probably some good production there, but normally we'll trail off near the end. For me, instead of like, we'd be paying a lot for McTavish or Byfield, but I just feel like that consistent return and just kind of sleeping soundly at night, knowing that our 2C is well secured, for me, is almost really worth it.
Yep, it is. Holy smokes. This is by far the closest poll of the day. By the way, we got another super chat. Guys, leave some love on Ethan's super chat. Please leave some likes on that. Thank you so much, Ethan, for the $10 super chat. So appreciated. Ethan coming in saying, Jesse, this is an interesting take. He says, I would rather have a super high point winger, 70 to 80 points, with a center that won't cost you as much, like Horvat, who will be around for a couple years waiting for Xhekaj. So first of all, Ethan, I really like that you say that we'll have a couple years waiting for Xhekaj, because one, we know that's not a guarantee, but two, I think a lot of people want to bring him to the NHL so fast, like after next year. I really like the idea that we're waiting a couple of years for Xhekaj, which is why someone like, maybe not even a Horvat, maybe a guy like Nelson, right, on the right type of term, Jesse, could really start declining and leave right as Xhekaj is picking up. What are your thoughts on that? Bringing in a really skilled winger, maybe we're talking, Kyrou, not Kyrou or Marner, but someone more like that style of player, along with maybe a cheaper center. I don't know if Horvat or Nelson would consider like a cheaper center, but like something like that in terms of like just getting some point production, setting up the base for your center to come up. Though I do think, again, that might block out some of our young guys. What are your thoughts on that take there?
It's an interesting one for sure. I think that I feel like with Demidov or with Aline that we can really kind of get the points that we need there. Maybe without having to go out and kind of get another type of center from there. But I think it's all about, again, it's about having that right kind of fit with this team. It's I love the point of that's another thing about getting a vet is it's kind of keeping Xhekaj in mind, because I would love the world where it's okay, we have that kind of vet center for maybe kind of 2 years. Xhekaj comes in kind of that third year there, he's playing 3C, and then he kind of has to work. You put him in a position where he has to work and get that 2C. That's the ideal thing where you don't have enough depth and you're just giving it to him. You really want him to, okay, there's a vet, he's the last 1-2 years of his deal, and to really oust him and to get that experience. So I think making a move while kind of having Xhekaj in mind, which I think is reasonable considering how dynamic and how he has exceeded expectations. We're doing a redraft. He's going higher. This very year in last year's draft, considering where he went there, a little bit more middle of the road. So yeah, I feel like it's really important to kind of keep Xhekaj in mind. And again, that adds to bringing that vet, that Barzell, that Nelson, Horvat kind of adds a lot of credence to that argument.
It absolutely does. I think it's a very interesting take. Thank you once again, Ethan. As I'm going to go through some chats here, we're going to shrink that poll back down. I'm going to read some channel member chats because I missed a few. Apologies to all of you who we missed the chats today. This was a banging stream, a fast-paced stream, and we're also one like away from 150. Hey, one of you, please hit that button. We really, really appreciate it. Canadian Dude and Oz saying Byfield would cost a bundle. Absolutely, right? He would cost a bundle, whereas McTavish is an RFA, Bennett's a UFA. I kind of love how we have one trade target, one RFA, one UFA in the top three. It just feels right. I really like this. And remember, who makes most sense? So we're going to go on. We got Ethan's chat there. Thank you again, Ethan. Jason saying Velarde's an RFA after next season. He's an option. He's very interesting. Mark Orr saying length of contract means nothing if there's no movement clause. Also a reasonable point, right? Again, that's the Kyrou thing. St. Louis is looking to maybe trade him because he has the NMC, and it's we might want to, we don't know if he's going to be there forever. Byfield costs a Suzuki or demigod. It's quite possible, which is, again, why we should maybe reconsider what you're thinking in the poll. But again, I just want to remind you, Ken Holland is their general manager. Don't assume that it's going to be sorry, Ken Holland. But anyway, that's enough for that. Jordan saying Hockey Guy had a good video speaking that Hughes probably won't jump on anything this year. Why deviate from the plan than upgrading for a possible expensive contract? And Jason said, agreed, Jordan. I think that goes against kind of what Hughes and Gorton have been saying. Hughes has straight up said, we are looking to improve the team. Direct quote from Kent Hughes. We want to improve this team for this offseason. Jeff Gorton has mentioned the style of player they want. 2C is something they've always talked about. I get it. I get the take that, why deviate from the plan? But I think this is part of the plan, Jesse. I think, I'm not saying, again, that they're going to make some big risky move. They're only going to do something that makes a lot of sense, but I think they're absolutely exhausting every avenue to genuinely make this team better.
Don't put that evil on us, Hockey Guy. We're trying to make moves this summer. He said, we just got in the playoffs. We're not trying to take some steps back. We're right there. We know those options. I know you say that you're not biased, but that Bruins fan, it's showing that take there. We're looking to make moves this summer like Ricky Bobby.
Oh, yeah.
You're not first, you're last year. We're trying to move up this chain. We know the parity in the NHL, it's as a business, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. And it's all about getting that momentum of sometimes when it comes your way, you need to capitalize it. They already know. They're saying it's going to be tough to get in the playoffs this year. Even with our current group of guys producing at the clip, it's only because guys overperform like Hudson that we get there in the first place. So they certainly know that they need to add to that to be able to reproduce that once again.
Exactly. As also, we got Mark Orr coming in, giving us the Google result for the polls there. Google polls may not equal 100%. This is due to rounding and sampling error. For example, if you survey everyone in the country, you could achieve 100% accuracy in a national opinion poll. Google, thank you. Appreciate that, Mark. And that's what I figured. A lot of rounding and sampling error. We got some small sample size with some rounding. It's probably... I still feel like if it was exact 0.5, just round up, less round down, whatever. I mean, add it if this percentage plus this percentage does not equal 100, add some, I don't know, add 1% to one of them randomly or something at the very least. But I get it. Thank you so much for Googling that. As Jesse, I think we're going to end this right at 7:30 Eastern. We got about a minute and a half left. This is the closest poll of the night. There is one guy winning right now. Any final takes on these three? I'm saying my vote for most sense. And what I would actually like, you know what? I might go Mason McTavish, but it's so difficult. This is all three of these guys. It wouldn't surprise me if this was a 33-33-33 final vote. I think I'm going to say McTavish because he's an RFA. We've done it before, but he also has a proven track record and is a good left-hand face-off guy. He just makes sense. I think Byfield will cost too much, and I think Sam Bennett's not worth the risk as much. I think to me it makes most sense to go with McTavish. You got a final thought before we let the fans finish their poll?
McTavish, but I'd be absolutely ecstatic with a Quinn Byfield. It might even show in the long run that that's the best. But for me, McTavish, Byfield, they just both scream to me of guys that you win with in the playoffs, which I think matter. Bennett's probably really important to throw into that as well. I mean, being clutch, what he's done for Team Canada, that service that you did for all of us this year, Samuel Bennett, was definitely great, right? But I think we want to kind of aim our sets high, and why not? If it so ends up that's a Sam Bennett, I think with a Demidov again, and I think Bennett is probably the most likely out of all this still. A Demidov there, kind of filling in that top six. I think we're still going to be able to get the support just by the graces of being able to get somebody like Demidov, where it's really going to balance out. Again, we made the playoffs. We gave a pretty good fight in that first round with a very incomplete, glaring holes. What a Sam Bennett, a Quinn Byfield, or a Mason McTavish could add to this team, and really how that affects what the relief that takes off Nick Suzuki. He's just doing everything, playing every single game, being injured, taking the toughest lineups, and he's still performing and being clutch under pressure. Just imagine you give him just a little bit of well-deserved support, which is, again, another reason of why I think that Kent will do a move this summer. Is you got to look after your captain. You have to make sure he's happy. He's okay. He's been holding down the fort for the Montreal Canadiens. The least that we can do is return the favor for him. So again, McTavish I'd probably have to take here, but obviously Byfield close follow up. But again, we have to say Bennett is the most likely out of this situation, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Ben is linked to a lot of teams too, so it'd be all these guys linked to a lot of teams, right? And who knows if Ben will stay? Who knows if he'll go to Montreal? Who knows if he'll go to another contender? But that'll do it. We're gonna end the poll, and I'm not gonna show it here on the screen because for those of you watching after this stream is done, maybe you're watching this as a VOD, you won't have access to the live chat. So this is gonna be a reveal. And the final results: our number 1 seed, actually our number 3 seed, is Quinton Byfield. Quinton Byfield coming in 3rd place right now in this poll. For those of you in chat live, you're seeing what it is. For those of you who are maybe watching after, hey, you're seeing this with us here, and I'm writing this down as well. No surprise there, Jesse. We just made our case for him. He costs too much. I think LA would be unlikely to move him. Never really know, but a little unlikely. The number 2 seed is Sam Bennett, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think he's the most likely, but I think there's some risk that comes with him as the number 1 seed. The guy that we both picked is Mason McTavish, and honestly, coming into this stream today, Jesse, this went a little longer than I thought it would, but I had a ton of fun. I would not have picked McTavish as the guy that I thought would win this. I'm kind of glad he did, and I feel like now I've convinced myself, maybe more than ever, that Mason McTavish just makes a lot of sense.
Kent Hughes wants to have that cake and to eat it too, right? We're a young rebuilding team. Things have been going better than kind of planned. Why stop now, right? Reach for the stars and you're going to still end up in those clouds. So I think this is absolutely how Kent Hughes should be approaching it. And he's given us every single reason to feel like this is the type of star players that he's going for. In fact, it's his MO. He loves to go after young players if he can feel they can grow, especially if he feels like this doesn't need to be a development project. It just takes so much extra work in terms off of him, right? And allows him to focus on other things as well. So going to be very interesting. That being said, the Ducks, teams like the San Jose Sharks, they're trying to do the exact same thing that the Montreal Canadiens are doing. If things go well, these are going to be some of the teams that are getting near, starting to be more of the contenders. It's more of the contenders in the league in years to come. So that being said, it's going to take a pretty penny considering that they're trying to do the same thing, but we're helped by the factors that they're in another conference. We don't play them very much per year at all. So there is lots of factors kind of going in. We have just so much ammunition. Like if we wanted to make that trade, or if we want to make, like, there's just a way, find that right cost for us. Like Ken Hughes can do that. We know that he has his number in mind. And we're just thankful that, he's going to stick to that plan and really find that right player.
I can't wait to see what it's going to be. It's incredibly interesting to look at all these guys that are available. And a lot of guys we didn't mention. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about Gabe Vilardi as well in chat. Again, he's an RFA, but like, I don't know if he's actually going to be like that would be more of like an offer sheet type of thing. I think. I feel like there's more talk about McTavish being moved than a guy like Vilardi in terms of a trade, which is why Vilardi was not included. But there's a lot of guys that we didn't talk about today that maybe we'll have to do a part 2. I don't know. And let us know in the comment section or in the live chat right now, someone that we missed you want to talk about, a guy like Sidney Crosby, a guy like Gabe Vilardi. There's a lot more out there. So leave your thoughts, but I think that's going to have to do it, Jesse. This was incredibly interesting. Any final thoughts to the chat before we get Trevor Zegras is another one. Before we end this off, this was a ton of fun. And hey, if you guys enjoyed this, leave a W in the chat, or if you didn't, maybe leave an L. I don't know. Leave your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. But I honestly had a blast. And hey, Mason McTavish, the unexpected winner. I think a bit of a Cinderella story. Not so much Cinderella, but like an unexpected winner nonetheless. And honestly, I'm quite happy with how this turned out.
And over the years of doing the show, we've noticed, Josh, that like it's important to like our fans, like they're very intelligent. Certain names that come up, like this is an interesting exercise. Like names like Gabe Vilardi, Mason McTavish, they're not coming up coffin unless there's kind of like a reason, something behind it, right? Like a lot of, I remember even we were talking about guys in the past, like, oh, should we pick up a Kent Johnson or not? We were thinking more of a reclamation. It's like a lot of guys, like they were saying here in our chat, like, you know what, like this guy's gonna end up being good. What do you know? Ends up kind of being a top 6 player, kind of finding his game, kind of getting there as well. So again, we know that there's always kind of something to this game. We're so privileged to do a hockey show for, we feel like the most educated fans in the National Hockey League. So we just really appreciate your insights as, we're kind of unraveling what that next big move is going to be.
It's going to be something huge this offseason. Thank you all so much for tuning into this stream. Look, if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're so close, by the way, to 21,000 subscribers. Thank you for hitting over 150 likes, 169 at the moment. Very nice. 275 people in here. Just see if you've subscribed already. If every single one of you have not hit subscribe and you did now, we'd be at 21K. Unbelievable stuff. Thank you all to our members, Jason, Mark, Canadian Dude and Oz, Joseph, Ethan, all of you wonderful people, and even the ones I probably missed. Thank you so much. What a fun stream. Hope to do it again soon. I'm Josh Gosse, my host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you all in the next one.